Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 35 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Clare Rowley, and this is Fabrically Speaking Live. And today I am not really sure what I'm going to do, but I know it's going to be either sewing, quilting, or embroidery, or maybe a combination of all three. Hi, Tina. Welcome to the chat. And I'm probably going to limit how long I'm live today because I'm still recovering from being sick. So if I'm a little loopy, you will know why. Let's see here. I still have this on my table from 2 weeks ago. So I may start up using what I made the last time I was live. Really up to you guys because, as you know, this show is your show. So I have this, and I could turn it into a little quilt top and maybe do a little quilting. One of my favorite things to do when quilting with the Octi-Hoops with these is to go around the pattern on the print that's already on the fabric. So it's a way of quilting without having to prepare ahead of time by tracing anything. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. Hi, Pearl. Welcome. So do you guys vote yes on that? I wonder if I have a good fabric to back this. Or I could turn it into a pillow and do some piping. I think quilting is what I feel like doing today. I'm going to take this and set it aside. All right. Sorry for not going live last week, you guys. My table extends out far, so I have a place to throw things. Gonna square this off. If any of you are waiting on pressers, know that I am thinking that I'll be able to make them tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and iron this and use spray starch to kind of see the bumpiness of the fabric. It's really kind of sloppy looking. And this is the top of it. You can kind of see it's got bagginess to it. And then on the back, we have all of this ribbon. I'm going to go ahead and trim all the ribbon down so that it lines up with the seam allowance. That way, I'm not surprised with my needle doing free motion. I'm going to avoid the ribbon. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Lorinda. Lorinda, welcome. It's been a long time. You guys need to tease her. Or I should say, welcome her. So I am going now to just continue trimming this because this is really dense and it would be very difficult for your needle to navigate through that, especially free motion. So if you want to know how I constructed this, it was the last episode of Fabrically Speaking Live, episode 35, I believe. Because I knew what episode it was when I started filming today, but now I'm not sure. So sorry if I worried any of you last week when I wasn't live. I tried really hard to put something up for you guys to have, but I was unable. Okay. All trimmed up and ready to iron and square off. And I like regular old store brand spray starch, but I like it when it's professional and it has no flaking, so when it dries it doesn't end up discoloring your fabric or leaving like what looks like shredded skin all over it. So, and I'm ironing on the back side because ribbon, well, it's satin and it's likely to get overheated by a cotton setting on the iron. So now this is gonna shrink it all back up again. And I can steam. If I didn't say hi, Pro, I think I did say hi. I feel like I have no brain today. I'm loopy. All right. Why didn't I picture you in Oregon, Lorinda? I pictured you in another state. Isn't that funny how I can picture you guys places and it's not where you're at? If I mute periodically, it's because I'm still coughing a bit. So because of the stitch pattern that I chose to use on this, it doesn't actually stitch through the ribbon, it stitches over the ribbon. And because of that, it acts kind of like a gathering technique. So as I'm ironing, I'm kind of pulling a little bit to help the ribbon lay flat within that stitch in case I pulled as I stitched last week. All right. Do another coat. You always do what I want you to do. Today, nobody can win. It's going to be whatever my brain can handle. Been contemplating it all week. What could I do? And I knew the whole time that I never cleaned up from last week. So I figured at very least I can do something with that and I'll look all ready and organized for the show this week. Okay, one more coating. So what have you guys been up to? What is on your sewing table? Please share in the chat. I was thinking I could go around this with a seam allowance. Yeah, I'll just bind it after. Binding is fun. If you haven't caught my binding techniques, you might think I'm crazy for saying that binding is fun. I did the The faux binding was really fun. I didn't create that technique, but using the Satinedge Foot and the glue makes it really easy. Hi, Veronica. Welcome. All right, I'm almost done with my ironing. It's not something you see me do every day. What backing fabric should I use? I'll let you guys enjoy looking at this while I figure that out. I just love this fabric. Come on, Claire. Make up your mind. Do you guys boss yourself around ever? This is cotton? No. That could be cool. It works. It doesn't go that well, but it doesn't matter because why? Because it's the back. And there's never anything wrong with purple, is there? I'm not going to square this off until I'm done quilting it. Does it clash too much? Would you guys do that, or would you worry about what the back looked like? I am going to iron the back fabric. Mostly just to get the creases out of it. It doesn't need spray starch or... I have used some ugly fabric for backing before. And then gone, ooh, I should have at least made it match when people looked at the back. That shows. And I'm going to use the bamboo batting because it is my favorite of all batting. And the reason it is because it doesn't require that I use pins. So I don't have to worry about basting. It also doesn't decay as fast as wool and cotton. I am feeling better. I'm surprised how much I've been able to accomplish being sick, but definitely don't have the same level of energy that I'm used to. I think I'm going to do 2 layers of batting because I can. And I'm probably going to use this to put hot items on. I'm not really worrying about how accurately I cut this, as long as it extends out past the backing. And then this is within the backing's borders, so I can't accidentally have my batting be inside of the actual item I'm quilting and then have a thin area. Ugh. Cutting away here. Are you guys getting ready for Halloween? I was thinking about doing a Halloween project next week. A pumpkin applique placemat kind of design, or not a placemat, like a wall hanging or a door hanging that you can put on the door to let the little ones know that you are handing out candy. Does that sound like something fun? And you can learn applique at the same time. And I want to use the glow-in-the-dark thread for that. So right now I'm checking to make sure that I'm within the border. I definitely have it cut way too big. There we go. There I go again, going, here we go. As a newbie quilter, I guess the best advice I would give any new quilter is to know that even though there are all these rules about quilting, there really isn't any rules about quilting. And if you feel less pressure of breaking some arbitrary rule, you're actually going to get more projects done than to worry about following some guideline that seems more important than it is. There is some science, though, that's important. Needle to use, needle thread. Making sure that you use a batting that will stay inside your quilt, which has more sustainability versus one that rots away. These are good things to know, but you can still quilt even using the wrong needle and everything, and you'll still end up with a quilt. Whether your quilt is something you can hand down to someone later on is what we end up determining. Batting fuzz. So if you're, whoops, I just threw my glue in the trash can. Where'd you go? Okay. We're going to use the Octi-Hoops for this. Do all of you have the Octi-Hoops? I'm not sure what you got, Veronica, but I know you got quite a bit lately. And you like the Halloween idea? So when we work with the Octi-Hoops, we bring one corner of the Octi-Hoop together with the other and hold that with your non-dominant hand. And it allows you to move the hoop and swing it around. And see how they stay together, even though there's no clamps or screws, without bringing them together. Well, they're not connected in any way, so they won't move together. Bring the corner of one to the corner of the other. Rest your hand on the frame that's bigger. And then you draw with your handle that comes in the Octi-Hoops. And that is the principles behind using it. You do get 3 frames. Each one is about 3/4 of an inch spacing in between each in size. And the one that you use on top is based on the size of your hand. That's too big because my hand doesn't reach the perimeter of this. So this is a better size for my hand to go on top. And this one I will put beneath. It is your choice. You could put this one beneath or this one. But I feel it's much easier to use these two together. And you're going to take and place the larger frame beneath it. And then this one drops inside of it. You can't see the frame beneath it, but you can feel it by bringing you can feel that corner lock into that corner. And now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and discuss the thread I'm going to use and needles. I like to use the Invisifill thread and the needle when I don't want my stitches to show a lot. This was last week's foot. This is the foot that I used to sew the ribbon on. Like you see here, I was even able to do a curved piece with the ribbon. But when we use the Octi-Hoops, we don't use a foot. So I'm going to take the foot off the machine. I don't know what I said, Pearl, but you needed to hear it. I'm glad I was able to say whatever it was you needed to hear. There's a time lapse from when I talk to when I hear, or when you hear me. I've already moved on in the conversation, so it gets a little confusing when I read your post sometimes. Especially when you guys laugh at something I said and I can't remember what I said. So I took off the snap-on adapter for the sewing machine. And now there's nothing beneath the needle. The thread that I have on there matches this. And it is a 40 weight thread. Trying to make it so you guys see it and not a bunch of stuff in the way. And so what color would look nice on the bottom? And I'm going to go ahead and pull out the Deco Bob. Whoops. Deco Bob comes in little small packs, individual packs, where you get a whole box of one color. And the master pack, which is really nice to get because like I didn't use all of this and I put it back in there. I know all these bobbins are Deco Bobs. If I use it and I don't use it up, I put it back in this, then I know I've got Deco Bob thread in there. And it is 80 weight, which means it's 50% thinner than embroidery thread. So I'm thinking, let's see, let you guys help me choose which color is going to be on the bottom. We have several colors that would look really nice. And it would be nice if you could see the colors. I think I'm going to go lighter. Oops, that light is so bright. So I'm going to go with this one. Do you guys agree? And then to do this, you take and flip this over. So, did I do that? No, I don't. The lid comes off. And I can grab this. And one full bobbin of 80 weight thread is the equivalent of 4 times a 40 weight bobbin. So this is like 4 bobbins worth of thread, and you won't have to wind it as often. I think it's going to make a really nice little light accent on that. Still not sure. Maybe I'll match and use a lavender thread on the top. What do you think? Lavender on the top? If so, write lavender in the chat. I'm going to grab the bobbin and take it over to my thread. Another nice thing is you can match your deco bob and get cones to match your bobbins. So I'm actually going to use the exact same color in the needle and the bobbin. So 80-weight will show up a little bit more than the Invisifill, which I like a lot because it's thinner. If you have a thinner thread, you can follow and stitch around smaller designs than you can with a thicker thread. Simply because the thicker thread takes up more space, more volume on the surface of your material. So if you want to do lots of teeny weeny stitches, or known as micro quilting, where you do tiny little quilt designs, then you would want to use a thinner needle and a thinner thread so that you can actually navigate around those tiny little shapes, and the thread will actually show up going around the curve. I'm hoping I'm making some sense here today. All right, thread the machine. And let's see. I'm ready for a nap. My dog, Tinkerbell, had a sneezing attack in the middle of the night, which woke both dogs up, and they were like, "Come on, Mom, let's get up. Let's go for a walk." Except for it was 4 a.m. And it took about an hour and a half to get them to settle down, so I'm going to blame it all on Tink today, who is not in her bed. I don't know where she is. Do you guys ever get woke up by your animals? If it isn't Tink sneezing, it's Chase snoring. And the thing about Chase is if I show any signs of being awake, he jumps on top of me and starts going, uh-huh, uh-huh. Do your dogs sound like human sometimes? This is the one time he sounds human. This thread is so dreamy. See how shiny, how beautiful that is? It's got such consistency going all along that surface area. And the needle, because I'm using a thinner thread, Tammy, I can go to an 80-12 needle, which makes it so I can do smaller shapes. That is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to use an 80-12 super universal needle. And the super universal needle is the most reliable needle to use for quilting. It has a special surface that makes it come out of the batting easier. Remember, I'm using 2 layers of batting, so I'm questioning whether or not I should use an 80-12. An 80-12 needle is designed to go up to 16 layers of 100% cotton fabric, so it's probably okay. But if I'm going to break a needle, I'll be more likely to break one using a thinner needle. But we're using a thin thread, so it's not going to be the thread that makes that happen. And I'm just not going to break needles, right? We're going to cross fingers and talk to the needle fairy and say, we're not breaking any needles today. Super Universal 9014. If I don't use a 80-12, it'll only be because I don't have one in here. There are lots of different sizes of needles, and the size of the needle does determine the thickness of the thread that you can use. I found it. I have 1. See, probably broke 4. I'm going to save the 9014s to have them handy in case I need it. Here we go. So, Amy, what temperature is it down in Phoenix today? It is really windy up here today in Prescott, Arizona. Windy and hot. And being in Arizona, you're probably not surprised it's hot. That could be. This is a stretch needle. Did I use a stretch needle last week? I must have. I was doing some mending and left it in. If you use a needle smaller than a 12, you shouldn't use your needle threader on your machine, because the size of the thread and the needle thread are going through the eye of a needle smaller than that. It could make your needle threader bend when it goes through. All right, time to have some fun. I don't know how far I'll get on this before I end today, because I'm still recuperating. And this is a lot of work when you actually take the time to go all the way around all of the designs that you can stitch around. So it's kind of a commitment that you're going to make. You want to make sure there's nothing around your machine that the quilt can get caught on, which apparently I have a lot. Okay. And my handle drops into the small frame. The larger frame is under nair. Instead of there, I said nair. If you're nervous, I was going to say this before and I forgot to show it. If you're nervous about your quilt slipping because you didn't use any safety pins or do any basting stitches, I'm going to show you my solution for that. First off, before I begin, I'm going to double check that the back is not folded because I was moving it around so much. So if you're worried about that happening when you're not aware of it, or maybe these 2 layers of battings slipping, then you can use our liquid-based glue, which is a water-based, water-soluble stabilizer. And one of you said, put your cap back on last week, and it's been off all week. It's actually on the floor. And this is what's so amazing about this. I did not have to use a pin to open it. It's just open and ready to be used. So now I'm doing little dots. Pin, 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 pin. Never have to pin ever again. And instead of just laying the fabric over on the dot, slide your finger over the dot to kind of spread it out just a smidge. You don't have to push down against it either, just a light little touch, and then lay your batting. Now I'm going to grab and flip it over and see how the back of the quilt moved with it. And that's not basted. So I'm really yanking that, trying to make it fall off. So I have to pull it apart. And instead of putting the glue on the fabric, always put it on the batting. Yeah, Amy, what do you think, huh? So I'm doing little dots about 4 inches apart. And this is definitely what I will do on my king size quilt, simply because we're handling it so much and there's always more of an opportunity for us to mess things up. But you can see how my back is not all the way up to the batting and up here. So I'm going to move this whole thing. Got the camera set too close. So I'm making sure that my batting is within the border of the back. And then if my I forgot what I was saying. Something's weird. There we go. Just want to make sure you're inside of the edges of the batting and that you know what I'm saying, right? I already said to do this. So now I'm going to do this on the other half. Flip this over and do it over here again. And I don't normally even do that. Nothing around your sewing machine is impossible. Well, I tell you to be clean and organized. So 4 inches apart, little dots. Kind of make a grid and then slide. And know that you're going to have a little of this on your finger. You might want a damp washcloth handy. Not that it really matters. It'll just peel off of you. You can just roll it up and it falls off. When I go to a king size quilt though, I'm definitely going to make sure nothing is on my table. So you can also do the top as well. But I don't really need to. I'm going to leave that layer open so you can see that you don't get puckers. I'll just go around it. What the heck. This time I'm going to go on the fabric. And I go around the border. You could even just do the corners and maybe one dot in between on something this small. But you don't need to go into the middle of the fabric. If you're going to use a foot on this, then you could go all the way around the border and add more of this. Because when you have the foot and the feed dogs and pressure from above, then it is harder for fabrics to not shift. The Octi-Hoops eliminate the need for a foot, which eliminates that pushing down from the top and the feed dogs pulling through from beneath. So the fabric layers are actually kind of just suspended between the two frames. And that is why you don't see any puckers on any of the quilting that I do. And so I'm done talking about it. Let's get to it. Tammy, yes, you can use the glue for photography as well. So if you want to load a bunch of photos into an album, it is acid free. So it'll be set to the same standards that you would have for any adhesive product that is recommended for photography or for, what do you guys call that? Scrapbooking. Except for there's water in it, so you don't want to use a lot. And that spreading of your finger to take some of the water out of that will reduce the amount of wrinkling that would happen on your fabric, on your paper. And as I sew with this, my elbow will be down. I have my little pad that I put under my elbow so that my elbow doesn't get sore on the surface. I plan on making something for my table. I actually made one for my desk. I have this long pad that I created and it goes underneath my keyboard and all the way around the keyboard. And so the edge of my desk has this quilted material going around the edge of the desk. So when I rest my arm on my desk, I don't have that hard surface digging in to the tissue in my arm. It's healthier for you to have a pad whenever you're resting your arm for a long period of time. When we work with the Octi-Hoops, we're also not going to lift our elbows. I have to take my shoes off, you guys. Okay. I have this microphone and a light in front of me. I'm going to try to show you my posture. Sometimes I push the machine further away from me as well so that I can lay down more on the actual table. And that takes all that strain on your shoulders and in between your shoulder blades and just helps those muscle groups to relax as you're quilting. So you can quilt for a longer period of time than you can using a method where your hands are pushing down, and that whenever you have your hands pushing down, in order to move something, you have to lift your elbows. So that causes that pinching in between your shoulder blades. We're going to move the entire quilt using just our fingers, not our arms or our hands. It's going to be just one hand steering the quilt, and it's just very, very light hold on the fabric. It slides like ice skates on ice. All right, I got to choose which design to quilt. I'll let you guys help me. So I have a light lavender. I think I'm gonna, I say gonna a lot. I'm gonna. All right. My yarn is, I have some, this yarn was going for a ride on the quilt. Okay, here we go. I'm going to move my microphone. So now I can rest. And I am really, really laying down against the sewing machine surface. I sew better barefoot too, Amy. I agree. I think it definitely affects it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is decide where I'm going to start. And it's really not that important. I'm going to bring my foot down, even though there's no foot on the machine. And you could remove the screw as well so that you have even better visibility, should you want to. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. That's the mantra for the Creative Feet products. Bring your bobbin thread up. If you can get it up. Sew a little bit. If you need glasses, wear them. And I have two different power or strength on these glasses. And I'm going to see which one I like better before I start. If you're waiting on any Appliquick products to come in, we do have them en route to us. And if you're not familiar with what Appliquick is, well, be sure to look on our YouTube channel to see when I mention the name Appliquick. You can search inside of my channel, by the way. When you see my channel header above, there's a search bar above, and then there's a search bar below my header. And when you're on the search bar below my header, you're searching inside of my actual channel, and then you can look it up. So what I want is I want to be able to see without having to get my face really close. These are stronger. Definitely easier to see with the higher power. I think I'm getting older, you guys. Okay, elbows down, shoulders relaxed. I didn't do too bad without my glasses on. I'm surprised. And now I'm drawing and not thinking about my stitch length, because there's really no such thing as stitch length, by the way. When you have no feed dogs and presser foot, I don't know how well you can see it, but I will show you a close-up here. in a minute. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. See, I can go slow if I'm staying away from the ribbon. So if you run the machine slower, the camera can see it better live. So I'm going back over instead of tying a knot. I think I'm going to actually create a feathered look using these elements that are in the fabric. And I'm now going to lower the feed dogs because they were up that whole time, you guys. I frequently forget to lower them. So each one of these is turning into a feather. In this way I don't have to stop and tie knots. Come over here. That's like a teardrop. But it's kind of fun because it helps you to follow a pattern without having to draw a pattern. It's up to you if you go back over and get any of the ones that that are not connected in any way. And then you just slide and slide it over, and that's how you move along the surface of the quilt. Okay, so now this one's kind of like that feather again. So I'm going to make it a feather. And you can quilt a lot faster than I am. First off, I'm not feeling quite as good as I normally do. So, and by the way, remember that this is an 80-12 needle with 2 layers of batting. So another reason to go slow. You can set your speed control on your machine to help you to sew slower. Here I have a crease that I made from the iron. So just know that if there is a crease, it is caused by the ironing. I'm going to echo quilt to come back over here and now make this into a feather. I highly recommend speed control adjustment so you don't have to think about the speed. The less you have to think about when you do free motion quilting, the easier it is. I also highly recommend that you listen to music and sing along or watch a movie without really watching it. One that you can visualize the scenes. Something entertaining that takes you out of thinking about learning and allows you the freedom to just have fun and not feel pressure from thinking that this is harder than it really is. So you can see how this violates or goes against all the rules of quilting. And isn't that fun? To not have to follow any rules. Tie a knot, I can cut my thread, and I can go over here but if I had started over here all the way on the end, then I would have not had to tie a knot. Once again, you would bring your bobbin thread up, and this machine is designed to eliminate the need to do that. How do you know if your machine is engineered to not require you to bring your bobbin thread up? Is if you have a machine that has an embroidery unit, a lot of times they're engineered that way. This is not an embroidery machine. It does not have the embroidery function, but it has the same body style. So when this company, which is Baby Lock, made by Brother, when they made this machine, they decided to leave that functionality. It was cheaper for them to have multiple models of sewing machines. I'm going to hop over, and I can tie that afterward. So if you have any of the wide body baby lock machines or brother machines, odds are you're able to not have to bring your bobbin thread up. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and show you this closer. Isn't that neat? And I don't know how long I've been live. Just under an hour. Still feeling okay, so try to think if I can mix this up a little bit. I think in this one purple fabric that I could do pebbles and show you that. Let me see. What do you guys think so far? My eyes are burning. It's weird. It kind of feels like chlorine, like I swam too much in a pool, which I definitely have not been doing. Let's see. Want me to do some pebbles, or would you like me to do a design of sorts? I'm just going to do a design of sorts. Why not? It's my show. Isn't that cool? So that's like the fastest way to quilting. Think about the pattern in the fabric when you lay it down. You can actually just take a piece of fabric and then batting and another piece of fabric. And if the piece of fabric on top has a design, oh, you guys. Then you can do something like this. So you can see how I quilted around the design. And in here, I didn't go all the way around. I only went around the outside of this flower. I could have gone inside of there. And on this side, I did a lot more of the quilting. I loved this fabric, and I did announce or list where I got it in the video where I teach you how to make this. I'm going to show you the inside. The really neat thing about doing this is if you plan ahead. Let's see. So this is the right side of the fabric. But if you want to look like the most incredible quilter ever, then you can quilt around a fabric like that and have your back of your fabric be a solid like this, and then everyone will think that you just quilted that with tracing, but you didn't. You just traced over the fabric. Does that make sense? So this could be the right side of the fabric instead of the inside of the bag. And it is very elegant to quilt on satin. Satin is also very resilient material. It's quite able to be quilted through. We don't always have to use cotton. So now you know what I got in my bag. Rolled up batting. So this is in my YouTube channel in the Clare Rowley's Creative Notions, which is kind of like this. This is our live show, Fabrically Speaking Live. And then Clare Rowley's Creative Notions playlist is my pre-recorded full-length tutorials. So you will learn the entire process of quilting this and making it into this bag. And I think, I can't remember the name of the video, but I can add the link. It'll either be one of those little infos, or I'll put it in the link below the video when this is over. Okay, so when you look at this one, you can see that there's a pattern here. It appears as though I traced out this whole design. But all I really did was follow a rule or an idea, a plan of sorts, based on these quarter quarter square triangles. So what I did was I decided that I would do this large design, and then I would come up to where the two fabrics sewed together, and then come back down, and then repeat. And that's how I went around the center. And this is a video as well on my YouTube channel. This is the one where I quilt through 4 layers of batting. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fabric on top and fabric on the bottom. This entire thing was done without a foot. Again. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with the Octi-Hoops, but you got to be brave, and you need to start using them if you haven't. Best thing to do is think about what you're making. If you make a bag like this and it's just to put dog treats in, or maybe other items for your pet, or I don't know, place to put your rotary cutters or extra scissors where no one else is going to see it, and practice the quilting process using smaller pieces of fabric like this, and create smaller projects before you jump right into a king size quilt. However, I have had people do that. I had a lady that was 92 years old. This was years ago now. And she bought all the Creative Feet and loved them. And then she got the Octi-Hoops. And she called me up and she goes, I was going to return these because I can't see how they're going to help me quilt. And I asked her, I go, did you try them? And she goes, no, I never even opened the package. I just looked at it and couldn't imagine how these were going to make it possible for me to quilt. And I said, well, you go ahead and you open that. And if you write all over it with a black Sharpie marker, I will give you every penny back. So go ahead and give it a try. And she ended up quilting a king size quilt, her first project with the Octi-Hoops at 92 years old. So it's really touching to me when I hear stories like that. But you have to start. You have to get past that doubting period of, I don't know if it can, if it'll work. And obviously you're going to be less likely to start a king size quilt unless you got the moxie like she did. So start small, have the project not matter that much, but don't use poor quality thread. Don't use the wrong needle. Don't use cotton thread, because cotton thread breaks a lot, or rayon. Make sure you use the items that I recommend here. Polyester thread is stronger, doesn't shrink, bleed, fade, or break. So you're less likely to have your quilt fall apart years from now when people sit on it and the fabric stretches, which does happen. Your fabric will stretch underneath someone sitting on the bed, and then the bed sinks beneath the weight of the body. The fabric stretches across the bias on your fabric. I'm sure you're familiar with that. You have that bias, you have a cross grain, you have with the grain. With the grain doesn't stretch. That's the non-stretchy way. So the one thing about the bamboo batting is it tickles. It floats in the air, but so does the others. All right, I lost my train of thought. Let's get back to having some fun here. I'm going to plot out this next section and kind of help you to know how to plot as you go, because it's fun. So I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, this is a rectangle. What could I do? I could do a design kind of like what I did over there. Do a teardrop kind of shape. And then come out from there and do, so I'm going to do one teardrop in the middle and then come out, and I'll do that on both sides. What do you think? Think that's a good idea? Thumbs up if you think that's a good idea. Oh, I love the wows. Don't remember what I said to make you say wow, but thank you for the wows. Oh, another thing you can do is you can combine colors of threads. I think I'm going to do that. Why not? I'm in the mood. So to help me to navigate center, I position the center of the hoop with the center so that I have like a focal point on the hoop itself as well. Nice thing about it not being round, that is one of the things I like about its shape. And I'm going to, should I have the circle go that way? I'm gonna have the circle go that way. So now I'm looking and I'm like, okay, if I go like this, I'm aiming for, okay, if I go from here to here, I'm aiming for that stitch. You could, instead of, you might not have ribbon there. Where's my pens? You could use the friction pins or chalk, anything that you have that wipes off or washes away or air dries. And you can go, okay, this is where you could fold it in half, and I kind of can tell that this is half. And I can go, okay, I want it to be up here. I want it to be centered, but I want it to be kind of a big, I could even do a heart for my center. I think I'm gonna do a heart for my center instead of just a circle. So knowing that, I could go, okay, how far do I want my heart to come down, and do a little dot. So I'm going to start here, come around, and I'm going to aim for that dot, and then I'm going to come around. So you see how I'm kind of plotting? So if I do that and I come up, this is where it needs to, I need to go from here to here first. And that's 1, 2, 3 stitches over. So we go 1, 2, 3 stitches over. And that's my other part. So now I've kind of charted out my heart, but I didn't draw the whole heart out. And this is the friction pin by Pilot. And this one has an eraser on this end, even though this is not normal ink, and that is not a normal eraser. This just creates friction, so you can actually erase even instead of ironing. But this is designed to erase from the heat of the iron. If you have heard that it does come back if it gets cold, it does only unless you don't wash your quilt. Okay, now I want to center myself with my needle. Got this light in front of me. Here we go. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Bring your bobbin thread up if you can. Ew, it came up. Now I need my tweezers. There we go. My favorite tweezers are these Apple Click tweezers. They're really good if you're physically challenged, if your thumbs don't feel like they used to or behave like they used to, getting soreness in here. Regular tweezers can actually hurt. So you see this flexibility in there that actually makes these connect tighter here. So you got a much better connection than any other pair of tweezers. And sorry, my drawer is opening. There we go. And then this flex takes the pressure from your hands, and oh, they're just awesome. Okay. I gotta try, I'm gonna put them back where they were. So they're there. All right, here we go. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Make sure that pad is under my left elbow so my arm doesn't get sore. And I'm going to move a few stitches over, come back, and this is one way to tie a knot. Another way to tie a knot is to take these threads through the hand sewing needle. Uh-oh, I forgot to turn the phone off. Oh no. All right. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, now I'm going to cut that thread. But you can take these two threads through a hand sewing needle and bring them in the quilt, like into the batting, and then you just pull the needle out and the threads, the ends of your threads are in the quilt. And that way you don't have any knots like you see here. Of course, the knots that I create are so hard to see when your whole quilt is done. All right, so I'm aiming for that, but I'm curving to it. Why is my speed control so low? Aiming for that. So rather than looking at your needle, your eye is focused on the next stopping point. So instead of looking there, now I'm going to look here and kind of plan ahead how my hands are going to move and then come down. So now I've done a heart. And now I want to do what? I want to come out like this and then here. So I think it would be easier for me to do this one first. And I want to connect it to this point. So now that I'm there, now I'm going to go over here. And I want to be curved. Getting close to the hoop. So we just slide the hoop over. Whoops. And here we go. So now I'm trying not to hit the ribbon because that's dense and I can break a needle on it. Now I'm going to come back here. My lights are flickering. Why is it happening? So in here I want another one, and I want it to come like that or like that. I don't know. Foot control is getting stuck on something. I think it's easier for me to come here first. Now I'm going to do the other side the same way. And if you want, you can spin the whole thing around. And I didn't need to do that. I just kind of want to show you that you have that flexibility. Get out of the way. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Bottom one first. Come out to here. I should have plotted a little bit, but I'm going to show you how it really is hard to tell when you make a mistake. And now I'm going to do a circle. And come around again and do another circle in here. And these extra little circles that you do, also known as pebbles, what they do is they create a pattern, another pattern for your brain to look at. Come across, go back over where we were. So this is quilting. Quilting and stippling are two different things. Stippling is when you never cross over where you've already been and you do like a fill-in stitch. Stippling kind of looks like the print that you see here. So this fabric would be great to do a stippling pattern. When you see me scooting, I'm moving the frame beneath, and then I bring the two together. And I'm going to do some circles over here as well. Circle. Now a bigger circle. And I think you'll be amazed at how much you have not noticed people did not do symmetrical designs that your brain just thinks it is. And I'm going to prove it to you in a second. Okay, cut that off. Try to get the focus spot. So you see how it looks symmetrical overall when you look at the whole thing. Your brain does not notice that there's not the same number of circles over there. But just to really show you, back to this, what you may not have noticed was that this one has a heart down here and that one has that. Now it looks as though all the hearts and all the corners are the same. This heart, that heart, they all look the same when you look at it overall, but they're all different because I eyeballed each one. So when you look under closer examination, you can see just how terribly this one is shaped. And I'm scraping the tip of the needle, darn it. So this one's really deformed. The heart comes in a bit. Who has a mask on? Are you guys having trouble understanding me? Christine, or you thought I had a mask on? I don't know, I'm hearing myself. It sounds right to me. I'm not feeling good today, so maybe you're noticing the difference in my voice. I don't know. When the machine's running. I don't have a mask on. I'm all by myself. Why would I have a mask on? Okay, let's see. All right, I'll do a little stippling for you. So this will become kind of a different quilting patterns lesson. Maybe the mic got, I moved the mic when I was quilting. Turn your volume up, Christina, because my mic is set